Gentlemen, this is a theatre of war, not a playground.
This is Jock Lewes, one of the most rare men in military history. SAS Rogue Heroes has turned him into a kind of mythic presence, the quiet genius behind the regiment's birth, the philosopher soldier with ice in his veins and vision in his eyes. But the real man was even more extraordinary and far more complicated than anything shown on television. Born in colonial India, hardened in Australia, and refined at Oxford, Lewes moved through the world with an intensity that left a mark on everyone around him. He could inspire total loyalty and deep unease in equal measure. He could sacrifice his own glory for the sake of a rowing crew one year, and the next find himself in a company of Nazi officials whose ideals he would later dedicate his life to destroying. Lewes wasn't just a character in a desert drama. He was a man whose inner battles shaped the future of the SAS. To understand why the SAS is so legendary, you must understand Stirling, of course. But most importantly, you must understand Lieutenant John Steele Jock Lewes, one of the many rogue heroes. Born in Calcutta in 1913, raised under the fierce Australian sun in Bowral, and shaped by a stern puritanical father, Lewes grew up in a household where discipline was everything. He and his younger brother David spent their childhood experimenting with chemistry, often dangerously so. One early improvised explosive left Lewes with a mangled hand, a grim hint at the explosive expertise that would one day define his wartime career. By the time he reached Oxford in 1933, studying philosophy, politics and economics at Christ Church, Lewes had already become the kind of man whose intensity drew attention everywhere he went. He excelled in rowing and rose to become the president of the Oxford University Boat Club. The nickname Jock became his badge of honour. And then came the moment that would reveal his character more clearly than words ever could. He voluntarily gave up his place in the Blue Boat to ensure his team's victory, ending Cambridge's 15-year winning streak. Yet what the show leaves out even more dramatically is Lewes's early fascination with Nazi Germany. The series hints vaguely at his idealism and academic interest in politics, but it does not reveal just how deeply Lewes admired Germany before the war. Admiration that extended to collecting Nazi memorabilia, nearly marrying a German woman in the party, and expressing in hundreds of letters shockingly pro-German and anti-British views. The show, understandably, avoids this complexity. The real Jock Lewes attended events where Hitler and Goebbels were present. He wrote home claiming Britain had backed the wrong horse. in the First World War. He defended Germany passionately, but that was until November 1938, when Kristallnacht shattered his illusions. In a single night, the mask fell. The brutality sickened him. His letters shifted from praise to condemnation almost instantly. He broke off his German romance. He vowed to fight Nazism with absolute determination. This moral conversion, one of the most important moments of his life, is entirely omitted from Rogue Heroes. The show's audience meets Lewes only after his ideological rebirth, not before. Some mention of this in the show would have really deepened his character. When the war began, Lewes's transition into soldiering was as swift as it was inevitable. Commissioned while still at Oxford, he moved from the Tower Hamlets Rifles to the Welsh Guards, but he craved something more. The Commandos offered that. As part of Lay Force, his frustrations with poorly executed operations forced his desire for a new kind of warfare. Precise, fast, small unit, relentless. In Rogue Heroes, these frustrations are dramatised heavily, with conflict and swagger and bravado. The details are stylised. The reality was more bureaucratic and more painful. Lewes was not reckless or wild. He was methodical, intensely controlled, deeply thoughtful. Tobruk hardened him further. The siege taught him desert endurance, improvisation, and the harshness of irregular war. At the start of Rogue Heroes, we see Lewes leading a raid known as the Twin Pimples Raid, and it was around this time that he encountered David Stirling. In Rogue Heroes, Stirling is portrayed as a charismatic maverick dragging others into his vision, while Lewes provides the intellectual backbone. That's not entirely wrong. Stirling himself later admitted that Lewes could far more genuinely claim to be the founder of the SAS than I, but the series simplifies the dynamic. The real relationship was far more complicated. Jock was impressed by the success of German parachute units, particularly in the Battle of Crete in 1941, which gave him the idea to set up his own parachute unit. He'd stolen some parachute equipment, arranged a few comrades, including Stirling, and made the first jump into the Middle East with little instruction or training. Well, he did it perfectly. Stirling, on the other hand, Lewes doubted Stirling. distrusted his recklessness, and joined him only after considerable hesitation. But once he committed, he shaped the new unit far more than the show reveals. At Tobruk, where L Detachment was born, Lewes built the SAS's identity from the ground up. His training regime was brutal, disciplined, and terrifyingly innovative. Rogue Heroes depicts training as chaotic, rebellious, and punk rock. The real Lewes ran a program based on precision, endurance, and survival. Long desert marches with little water, parachute drills, navigation by starlight, demolitions, observation, camouflaging vehicles, treating wounds, and hitting targets under stress. His men respected him because he pushed them past their limits, and because he always led from the front. The show also portrays the invention of the Lewes bomb.
It's the famous Lewes bomb. Jock Lewes invented it. He cooked us up a prototype tonight. We're going to try them out. No, but Jock Lewes is very smart. I'm sure we'll be fine.
Which I think it portrays it more as a quirky experiment rather than the far more grueling, relentless tests that he actually did. Refining mixtures of plastics, explosives, diesels, and thermites into a compact charge, which was capable of both blasting and burning. Ordnance experts claimed it was impossible, but Lewes proved them wrong. And this device was not just a minor contribution. It transformed the SAS into a force that could destroy an entire airfield in minutes. Then came the first official SAS mission in November 1941, a catastrophic parachute raid known as Squatter. A brutal desert storm tore the operation apart. Almost half of the men died, drowned, broke bones, or vanished into the desert. Lewes's unit was the only one to return intact. Despite the disaster, he pressed forward, where he was rescued by the LRDG, or the Long Range Desert Group. Despite the disaster, he pressed forward and helped mastermind the December raids. In collaboration with the LRDG, were using ground vehicles, and finally achieved the results that they had trained for. Lewes's team destroyed vehicles, disrupted supply lines, and struck Axis airfields with devastating precision. The show's depiction of these raids captures the chaos, but it cannot fully show how carefully planned and methodically executed these really were, nor how much of that planning was Lewes's work. And then, at the very height of his potential, Lewes's life ended. The 30th of December 1941, returning from a mission near the Norfilia airfield. His patrol was strafed by an Italian aircraft. Standing to return fire, he was struck by a 20mm cannon round. Sergeant Jim Almans later wrote, "I thought Jock was one of the bravest men I have ever met. An officer and a gentleman." His death devastated the unit. In Rogue Heroes, his death is treated as abrupt and symbolic. But in reality, the loss was catastrophic. A blow to the SAS's morale and a blow to its future.
Who the fuck is going to be the sensible one now?
And in one final twist of crueling timing, a letter arrived that he would never read.
Dear Jock, I received your letter this morning and I danced. I actually danced with the letter in my hand as if it was you I was dancing with. Of course I will marry you, Jock. Of course I will.
Today, Jock Lewes is commemorated at the Alamein Memorial, but his legacy lives in the ethos, discipline, and standards of the modern SAS. Rogue Hero shows him as stoic, enigmatic, and quietly brilliant, but the real man was far more complex. A former admirer of Nazi Germany who became one of its fiercest enemies. A disciplined intellectual who trained killers with scientific precision. A man whose contributions were so profound that the supposed founder of the SAS admitted that Lewes deserved the title far more. The show captures his aura, but the real Lewes had deeper shadows, brighter brilliance, and a more haunting humanity. He lived for only 28 years, yet without him, the SAS would not exist in the form we know today. Enjoyed this dive into one of the many Rogue Heroes and want to hear more real stories behind the legends? Hit like, subscribe, and let me know who you'd like to see next. Because sometimes history doesn't need a rewrite, it just needs to be told properly.